Okay.
This is why we don't let Callum do the intros.
Yeah, this episode was fine. It was fine. Yeah, it was fine.
I have a question. Where is Senor Scratchy?
Yeah, what the fuck happened to that rabbit?
Unless she has something to do with it.
She was Agatha all along.
I don't know why you're surprised by that. In the last episode, I said it was Mephisto and she was going to be my Agatha Harkness. That just happened. You didn't stop it.
Sure thing, Mephisto.
Neil Fisto.
Neil Fisto. There you go, everybody. Neil Fisto. You didn't make it into this finale, but you made it here.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
I mean, obviously working behind the scenes, but a direct appearance like fans were expecting to, not so much. He's very sneaky that way.
You see, I feel kind of dumb because I realized, like, a little before this, they announced, like, two new Funko Pops were gonna come, but they didn't show what the Funkos were, and the last two were Agatha and White Vision. So I was like, it's gonna be frickin' Mephisto, and then maybe Jimmy Woo or Darcy. One of them is totally going to be Wanda in her super suit. I don't know why I didn't figure that out.
There's her super suit.
What was that, darling? Where is my super suit? Why do you need it, darling? Westview is in danger. Our evening's in danger.
I would love that. The Incredibles was referenced in this show. Even this episode, they did an Incredibles pose thing. Seriously, what the fuck is going on with that rabbit? now all I can think about is that rabbit.
The theory set in this video, the rabbit. Just no, we're not talking about what's gonna happen for the rest of Phase 4. We're talking about the rabbit.
Silly rabbit. Chicks are for kids.
Eat bugs. That rabbit was weird.
Hey, if you thought that rabbit was weird, wait until you see Watership Down.
Oh gosh.
That's me. That's one of my many dark flashbacks of my childhood.
You know, like. So hello everybody. My name is Dr. Neil DePus. I'm joined by Sharon Callum. Let's go straight into the really fast recap. It takes place right at the end of last episode with Agatha and Wanda fighting. Then White Vision shows up and tries to gush Wanda's head. But then Vision fights White Vision. Then Wanda fights Agatha. Then Quicksilver fights Monica. A lot of fights.
Monica fights back against Quicksilver. And then Monica does a reverse Matrix where she takes in the bullets instead of dodging them.
Oh, that's later.
Right.
Wanda is shamed by all the people in the town, so she tries to take down the Hex.
Witch.
Well, that starts to kill Vision and the kids, so she has to stop. And then, while still in the Hex, because they opened it for a second, Hayward and his goons got in.
Or
so,
as Melissa would have said, what was it? Fuckface?
Oh yeah, fuckface. I was calling him best word.
Wish she was here.
Haley!
Haley,
His
yeah.
name is not Haley.
Why not?
You're a fool. I saw that Mel will be here soon, but continuing. So the kids fight the military. Vision fights White Vision, and Vision convinces White Vision that they need to unite, sorta. So Vision, in some degree, is now back in the MCU. Wanda saves the kids from being shot by Hayward, and then Hayward gets hit by a car by Darcy. I wish he would have died, but he's alive and he's going to jail. Wanda traps Agatha in her own mind, but then Agatha turns it on her. Then they fight. Agatha traps her in the hex and puts runes all over the place so she doesn't have her powers anymore. She obtains her comic book costume and then defeats Agatha, turning her back into the nosy neighbor. She then takes down the hex, loses Vision and the kids, and then runs off to learn about her magic. After credit scene, one of the people was a Skrull. After credit scene number 2, Wanda is in a house by herself, reading the Dark Hole.
No one there beside her, all alone, no vision and no children.
And now she's gonna end the world and make it all explode.
Then somehow Mephisto shows up and Doctor Strange too.
Well,
Do
here's the
you
thing.
hear the Avengers sing? Sorry.
They are hardcore blue-balling us with Mephisto right now, because what they did is essentially they were like, yo, you have no idea what you just unleashed. You're going to need my help later. They've got to be talking about Mephisto there, right? They're going to need Mephisto's help later.
I mean, even if that wasn't obvious, the fact that Wanda now has Agatha's magic, yeah, there's a high chance that she's going to live to become the villain.
So let's just all say what everyone's going to say. Let's just get it out. This episode was not as good as episode 8.
Yeah.
I think that's clear. But now I pose the question to both of you. Did you like it or dislike it? Because it seems like Mel hated it.
Yeah, expect the rant of a lifetime. Probably not as big as a rant as she would do if we were doing something like Frozen, but still something close to that capacity, I would imagine. But yeah, you better hide, Charisse. You better hide.
Let it go.
I left like Olaf.
Olaf got Thanos, remember? Olaf got Thanos in Frozen 2.
Doesn't feel so good. So I saw the reaction, and I made a reaction on Stardust, giving it 3 stars. I thought it was good. I mean, it wasn't awful, this finale. It's not the worst thing ever. I was just mildly disappointed after everything that the show was building up to. But I understand that things had to be wrapped up, and the characters all did appear as the show was built up to. So not bad, but not as good as it could have been.
You see, I disagree with you. I think that while episode 8 is still a better episode, I think this was probably the best way they could have ended it. And I'll discuss why later. Cher, what did you think? Did you like it?
Bunny has something to say.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I mean, I liked it. I didn't love it. I mean, I knew Wanda wasn't really going to get a happy ending. It was going to be more bittersweet.
Mm.
I never read the comics, but I could just tell that it wasn't going to be a happy ending. I know that's what Mel wanted, but it is what it is. I love her costume. I wish Monica had some more screen time, just a little bit. I want to see Monica and her using more of her powers, and she was, after the bullet, she was just standing there, and I'm like, are you gonna help? Are you just gonna stand there? And, I mean, at least Darcy had something, but then she just disappeared afterwards, but okay.
Yeah, I thought Darcy was weird in this episode. Like, she showed up once, said one funny joke, and then never showed up again.
Yeah.
It's not just the way of the Darcy.
Jimmy Woo was funny.
Jimmy Woo. I mean, at least you got your Jimmy there, Neil. But he called a friend, which I'm assuming is the Skrull, but in terms of story narrative, that only served as sequel baiting and not as anything worthwhile for the actual plot at present. I mean, they could have easily saved the entire Jimmy scene after the credits, just like him calling, and yeah.
I think you're a little confused. Jimmy did not call the Skrull lady.
Oh.
Jimmy called someone named Cliff.
Okay, who is Cliff?
Just some random agent. He called he called the FBI. That Skrull is separate from Jimmy. No connection.
Was that just to arrest Haley?
Well, since Hayward went to jail, we can assume Monica's going to become the leader of S.W.O.R.D. now.
Yes!
And the friend that they're referencing is actually Nick Fury. Like, when she's like, oh, there's a friend that wants to talk to you, and then she points up, that's Nick Fury. That's him in the spaceship we saw at the end of Spider-Man.
Oh, I thought she was referring to someone like Captain Marvel in space or something.
I thought she was referring to Talos for some reason.
It could also be Talos. She just said a male friend.
I thought it was Talos.
If I'm being honest, I think it's probably Nick Fury. But
I also wish Hayward got punched in the face like Hans from Frozen.
I actually disagree with you when you say that was just sequel baiting, Cal. Because it wasn't. That was the conclusion of Monica's art. Like her art. She came back from the snap. She went to S.W.O.R.D. She attempted to just be a field agent, even though she very much should have been in charge. And now this is the setup where next time we see her, she's going to be in charge.
Right. It's just that I have a series of questions which I suppose can be answered, but just goes to show that the finale could have either used an extra episode or just more time or some more of the concise way to do it up. So I've actually taken the time to literally write down some of the questions in some scrappy paper, which is very nice and soft.
Let's go through some of those questions. What questions you got? Let's see if there are answers.
Okay. The first question I wrote, and I think this one can provide some of an answer depending on viewer interpretation. How does Wanda resurrect people? How was she able to bring Vision back to life?
She doesn't. It's all an illusion by the Hex.
And how are Vision and the children conscious?
Because either A, the children could be personalities pulled from the multiverse, but they explain it at the very end. Vision himself is the Mind Stone, like the part of her that the Mind Stone was touched by. So because of that, she just materialized Vision, like a fake Vision in her fake reality.
Okay. Now, see, people like you can give me some thorough answers. I mean, these questions are not impossible to answer. I think the show could have explained just a wee bit. I think there's a difference between like visual storytelling I appreciate, but there are times when I could do a little bit of explanation, please. So my theory was that she made the magic field, and in it she could resurrect as many souls as she wanted. They're just not allowed to leave. That's what I picked up lately, but you've obviously brought that up too, so there's that.
I mean, the kids are confirmed to be in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, so I think I was right when I said that it's going to be Wanda and Doctor Strange go through the multiverse, but instead of trying to take Pietro home, which was my original theory, they're instead going to go try to get Wanda's kids back.
Right. My next question is, what happened to White Vision?
White Vision left, dude.
Right. It's just that Vision touched his head to regain his memories, and then, poof.
White Vision is now Vision, but here's the thing. This is my theory on why he left. His programming still dictates that he needs to kill Wanda, so he probably flew away. That way he wouldn't be a danger to her.
Okay, fair enough. And also, this is probably going to sound somewhat far-fetched, But why couldn't Vision, with his powers, transfer like his conscious by submerging himself with White Vision, like sort of to pull off somewhat of a Danny Phantom or something, and then just go into White Vision's body or something?
Because he wasn't real. He was fake.
Ah, okay. Wait a minute. If it was fake, then how was he able to display real memories to White Vision?
Because he is literally Wanda's emotions, love, and memories made real. So he was able, he specifically was giving Vision back his memories, so of course he could do that. And in the Hex, he was, for all intents and purposes, real. But in reality, he's not real. So he couldn't mix with the real Vision or anything. He's not real.
No wonder he was more emotive in the first several episodes, particularly. That explains that.
Yeah.
Also, let's see. Oh yes. The reveal of who Quicksilver was. So who is Ralph Boner? Boner. And what happened to him?
Boner. Boner. You get a share? Boner.
Boner.
Good night, everybody.
Here's the thing. I have no idea who Ralph Boner is, and I gotta admit, this is the one thing about the episode that disappointed me too. I really wanted it to be real Pietro. There are some people holding out hope. Like, there are some people but he had the speed powers, so maybe it is real Pietro.
That's my next question. Why does Ralph Boner have Quicksilver's powers?
He's a speedy boner. I don't know. I don't know, dude. He's a quickie.
That's disgusting.
I got more.
My buddy and I do not approve.
That's disgusting.
I'm literally the Fisto. These jokes are the good stuff.
Fair enough. Anyway,
I don't know. I feel like that's intentionally left vague, and I'm gonna be real. If they casted Evan Peters when there is a movie coming out later called Multiverse of Madness, and they just did this to fuck with us, I am gonna be a little upset.
Right.
Give them time, though. We'll see. Maybe they've got a plot twist planned where he is Quicksilver. I don't know. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Right. Obviously, there's Agatha was obviously controlling him with that voodoo necklace or whatnot, and he was manipulating. He was using Ralph as Quicksilver to manipulate Wanda to an extent, but. How did Wanda not know it was someone other than Pietro at the door?
Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello.
Before we get Nell's thoughts, I'll answer your question real fast. It was because, she didn't understand her magic or anything, so she thought it was completely possible that, it's what Darcy said, she could have recasted him.
Right, okay.
I think the answer to your question is Wanda fully didn't understand what was going on in the Hex either, so she kind of let herself be fooled because she wanted her brother back.
Okay, I mean, I knew she was giving into emotions and stuff like that, but sorry, this finale is left me with so many questions. And one more question before we let Mel speak. So Quicksilver was clearly dominating Monica from ever leaving the room. So I know Monica's got new powers and martial arts and whatnot, but how did Monica suddenly beat Quicksilver when he was so impassable before? Quicksilver could have easily dodged her approach.
Because he was a dumbass.
I think he was. Well, not only was he a dumbass, but if you notice her, anytime that she does something different, her eyes glow a different color. And yes, they're new to her, but she probably figured out of being oh, maybe I can tap into this to stop him from using his speed. That's what I rolled it out as, but kind of find that scene funny, but we'll get to my thoughts in a second.
Okay.
Me?
I mean, if we're being real, he was being dumb. The second the second Monica wanted to fight him, he should have used his super speed and knocked her down. Instead, he did a joke where he was doing fisticuffs and let himself get grabbed.
Right.
Also,
Okay, now
let's assume this isn't actually Quicksilver. He probably doesn't have full control of his powers.
Right. I still question his super speed, but Mel is here. Release the Kraken!
She's gonna destroy this episode. Yay!
So the shorter story is strong beginning, love to be the beginning, shitty ending. Shitty ending. Yes, it led up to some shit that we might be seeing later, but very, very shitty. And I feel like people got robbed on this one. I feel like, though, if people weren't dropping, for example, so I was just reading the article, right after we watched the episode. The director actually came out and being like, yeah, it was all a joke and we should have stopped it from... Shit, I'm spacing the actor's name.
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany, thank you. Of him dropping that, because he also too said being like, one of those jokes that you think is funny, but then once you say them, you realize that you start to panic, and then you realize maybe it wasn't funny. He said it was pretty much that, but he didn't mention it to anybody. It was a joke until it was too late. So I feel like the ending would have been better for me because I do blame it on that of being like, then you should have said being like, oh yeah, there was a special guest I always want to work on, and being like kidding right in the moment. But I know a lot of people are not going to like this episode. They might not hate it at the best case scenario, but it in my eyes, it kind of, yes, I understood some of the stuff. The only part I found extremely hilarious, and you guys were, just talking about it, and I wanted to say my piece, was the Evan Peters Quicksilver and the Monica Rambeau. And I looked at it as this, since it wasn't like an illusion and it was actually an actor under Agatha's control a little bit. I was just like, is this Disney's MCU saying that the Fox X-Men are no longer canon? At least in the MCU? But
I don't know. Part of me wants there to be they had a perfect story beat to take the version of Quicksilver that I think everybody arguably likes the best and toss him in. And for me, that's the big disappointment. I don't really care that Paul Bettany told a joke that ended up being this whole thing. I don't mind that because in the long term, that's gonna fade.
But it was still we all believed it to be actual facts, so he kind of started the flame. But I also too hold responsibility for the people who told him not to do it, because they could have spoken out sooner and been like he was kidding. There is no special guest, but they decided to wait until the last episode was either about to drop for some people or has already dropped, depending on your time zone, of course, because I know not everybody's watching it the same. We were waiting till Friday until you mentioned it came out 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock your time, which would have been 1 o'clock our time. So we started watching the rest of the episodes. I think it was 4 or 5 when you mentioned it, or that we started staying up late, because it was a good feeling. It reminded us of when we were kids, of being staying up really late to watch a new episode before everybody else and shit. But but overall, it was a strong beginning. Yes, left off where we were at. The kids were okay at the end. It was also really sad, which I had a feeling it was going to be, that the kids were also too a part of the illusion. I even though Eli wanted to believe that they were actually real creations, but I always was iffy about that, being well, they physically couldn't get pregnant, and it would make sense that they could only exist in the hex. They can't exist in the real world or their real world. But but they missed a huge opportunity because, like, the one thing that everyone's been talking about is Mephisto, because the rest of the episodes, even though there was creative liberties, they were lining up really well with the comic books, and that's how the children were made, was the help of Mephisto's magic. And that was a huge letdown of being like, it was all leading up to Mephisto. I would have even been satisfied if Mephisto was only hinted at. Like, that's what I said in the last episode, was being like, even if he was hinted at, like, even at the end or the second, like, after credit scene where you see, her in the cabin, there was wiggle room. Like, Mephisto's the devil, like, their version of the devil. Like, even if they left it mostly as was, but then, like, gave a little hint, like, her hearing her children cry for her, but then you hear, like, this maniacal laugh or something, anything, just a tiny bit of a bone would have been a perfect lineup of being like, we get to know the next villain that's going to be, appearing, whether he's going to be huge in the MCU or not. Just something, because they had such a strong beginning. Like, they faced off with Agatha, White Vision came into the fray. Also, to like, they pretty much like dismissed like White Vision pretty quick, in my opinion. Like, I was fine with how it was, like, with the fight sequence, and of course, like, I knew that there was going to be something that was going to, like, have White Vision to get all of his memories back, because that was the Vision's corpse, per se. They just revented it as their own shit with sword to, use against Wanda and shit, but when he got his memories back, that would have been an opportunity to give her, like, a bittersweet ending. Like, yes, it could have been like the acceptance of grief, because that's how I felt it was. Like, she didn't like the fact, and also showed being like, acceptance doesn't mean that you're happy and you move on. It just means, well, fuck, it is what it is, and you don't have to be happy with the result. But it could have been a bittersweet, like, it could have been like her in the cabin and like, and White Vision coming into the fray and being like, Wanda Vision, what the fuck, being like, they had so many opportunities to at least, like, lead it off on a decent note, whether it was a sad ending or a happy ending, it didn't matter. But the weakness was the ending. It was rushed. It was quick. It wasn't like the other episodes before, where it's like you got fully invested. And even if we didn't get like a proper conclusion, it was just like they just did the one thing I feared. They fucked up the show. Like, I'll still watch the rest of the episodes because, I love each episode. I think like what my weakest one was like the Halloween special, but that wasn't even a lot. But it totally took everything that was building up to this and gave us like a womp womp ending. Yes, the only positive I will give is being like, yes, now we know Monica Rambeau's going to go into space. Probably some, some shit with her and Captain Marvel, or other, like, shit going on in the MCU. That was fine. Like, even though I found it a bit weird that they brought her into somewhere like very eerie, like an empty movie theater. I did find that a little bit off-putting, especially for just one of the detectives who you've never, or like agents who you've never seen before. There's like revealing that she's an alien. Like, there was no build up to that. Like, I would have been happier if it was like somebody you've at least seen before, and then being like, aha! I was wondering why you were like consistently in shots, even though you didn't speak a lot. But it was just a random person coming up and being like, I'm an alien. Awesome. Cool. Because that was also to where I was expecting, like, maybe somebody like Strange or Magneto, like, kind of coming into the fray and being like, so she discovered she was the Scarlet Witch. But it was fine. It was just a lukewarm thing of being like, you could have done something better, way better, but I'll settle. But it was really just the ending overall was, they built up this show to be so perfect that you gave it such a mediocre, ending. Like, it was just disappointing. Like, I'm not totally mad. I'm just disappointed. Extremely disappointed. It's one of those things where you tell people being like, I'm not mad at you, but I'm extremely disappointed.
Mm-hmm. And I respect that opinion, but I do personally think I disagree. I mentioned it at the start of this video, and this is the ship I'm gonna die on.
Always goes down with the ship.
I thought the ending was probably the perfect way for a show like this to end, in my opinion. And I mentioned this in our comments. Like, I don't think we're supposed to like feel happy with the ending. I think we're supposed to be angry. I think we're supposed to want it to change, just like Wanda does. And in that ending, I kind of realized we weren't watching somebody healing this entire time. Like, I know that, like, looking back, it's like, oh, the show is going to end with her accepting her grief and healing. No, honestly, it feels like we saw a villain's origin story. Like, this is explaining why, when she's in Doctor Strange, why she's probably going to be the villain. Like, honestly, I think this was probably the best way to go, just because she shouldn't have been happy because she did do a bad thing. But in her head,
Right.
I kind of like that she's like now found new grief through all of this. That she's gone deeper and darker to the point where she's like, oh yeah, this book that could maybe, just maybe, get it where I can control myself enough where I can go find my kids. Yeah, I'll read that fucker. I don't care that people are saying my destiny is to destroy the world. I want to help my kids. Like, we understand her now to the point where she's going to be a very relatable and understandable villain. Like, she's going to be the new Killmonger.
Except this time there's a whole lot of character development, apparently.
And and what I'm saying is that I love that idea because, like, there are many versions depending on what people know of Scarlet Witch. Like, you could practically not pick up a comic book ever, but at least watch like some Marvel stuff from the past to understand it being like she wasn't always a good guy, and she's always been like a gray character. Like, I always put her kind of similar to like Mr. Freeze. Yeah, the MCU. And that's not, I guess, what I have a problem with. Like, I respect your opinion too, and you actually have really good points. I'm just saying the execution could have been a little bit more than middle of the road. Like, we all were hoping for a happy ending, but we were all preparing for a sad ending. That's not the problem I see with it. I'm just saying that it, unlike the other episodes where, like we said before, why it was a smart idea to make this into a show, right, is they could take their time on shit, and they did beautifully. But the last episode felt rushed. It felt incomplete in a way, and being like, and yes, you can understand it from a moral value, because like I said before, is like, grief isn't a process that's so black and white, and that's why I have a problem with, like, people having still the same stigmata of how to handle grief, because it's not black and white. My shit, for example, right? So Wanda's relatable on that fact of being like, grief, it doesn't work in stages. It also too, it, like, with the this part especially, I've never personally believed it means you accept it and you move on, per se, being like, it's just accepting the fact that things are the way they are. You can't do anything about it, but that doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time about it or find some peace with it all the time, because everybody's different in their grief and it's their own journey. That's not the issue. The issue is that it was such a middle of the road way of doing it, and I don't think they gave her proper justice. Like, the one part I loved though with it was when, after the hex was like down for good, and the way the people responded was justified, of being like, yeah, you pretty much put them through mental torture and kidnap for your own selfish desires because you wanted your life the way it was. Like when Agatha like undid the spell for them and they confronted her of being like, we can feel your pain, like we're not happy with what you did, and you can say all you want, but we're miserable because you did something that wasn't okay. After all, you might have viewed it.
That was my big thing from the last episode. Like, I really wanted someone to call out Wanda, and because I was still under like the mind space that like she's gonna have this happy ending, she's going to become a hero, and of course, like I've shitted on that, but I do still like that Agatha spent almost the whole episode calling her out and shaming her. That scene with Dottie where she's just pleading, give my daughter a bigger role in your story, please, just so I can like see her.
Right. Like they were at the point you're at the point of desperation that some of them didn't even really care if Wanda still did the shit that they did, but they wanted to compromise and bargain. Which is another stage 2 in grief, or well, it's in my opinion, it's not really a stage, but it's a process of being like you start to bargain, being like, please, like I don't care if you still do this, just at least can we compromise here and let me see my kid, for example, or being like, or some of the, and I loved how each person had a different reaction towards it too when she undid the spell, of being like, some people were angry at her, of being like, I don't want to continue doing this anymore, just please let us go. And then there's others like Dottie who are just like, I don't care if you do this or not, just let me see my family and not keep them away from me. You've just been keeping them in their rooms this whole entire time, and I can't even touch them or hug them. Or there were some people who were just like, defeated, like the older lady that played the wife of the boss in the first episode came up and being like, if you're not going to let us go, just kill us then, because I'd rather die than be in this hell anymore. And it was coming in full circle. That's why, like, I do agree with you of being like, I loved how Agatha pretty much called her out of being like, you may have good intentions with this, but this wasn't the road to go, and give me your power because I'm someone who can actually utilize it.
I think that's the scene for me where Wanda really became the villain. Like, when she actively uses her powers to like choke everybody, I think that's when it was like, okay, look, I realize that my pain is infectious. I'm going to stop this, but I'm not giving up on my fucking family. Are you kidding me? No, I'm not giving up on my family. I'll let you go because I'm hurting you. I'm going to then go and try to save my family. No matter what.
And I think that was the strongest part in the episode, and that's what I meant by being like, I thought the beginning part was the strongest, because it went that I was hoping it would go, especially like with Agatha, because Agatha in any other version is usually a neutral character, or if she picks a side, it's only for like, she treats it like the side of being like, I'm going to pick the side that benefits me better. And also, too, in a way, kind of throwing a little bit how she might be starting as her mentor. That's why, like, it was kind of satisfying that Wanda didn't kill Agatha, but instead being like, I'm still going to let you kind of suffer and be the character that you stepped in and wanted to be, which was the nosy neighbor. And you have to live here in Westview until, if I need you, or if the things that you're saying are true, I can just come back, find you, and undo it.
Not if I find you first.
With that, since you were saying this was probably your favorite moment of the episode, let's springboard that now into everyone else talking about their favorite moments. Callum, you brought up your questions, but did you have a moment of this episode that you were like, I really like this?
The bit you just mentioned, Agatha. I gotta just say for a brief moment, the actress is having the time of her life as this witch. And also, she does call her out, and Wanda's finally got what she deserved, just the shaming. And I love the scene at near the very end where she's leaving. People don't even speak to her; they just stare. They just give her this stare of guilt, like you did this to us. To quote a Telltale game, to quote a Telltale game, they will remember this. Other moments I really liked. The action was really cool, I must say. I know that sounds typical, but it really was. I mean, Darcy running over Harley, stop it, with a truck. Monica stepping in, doing a reverse Neo and just taking in the bullets, and Vision fighting White Vision, and Wanda having the stakes raised, whereas every time she uses her powers, Agatha pretty much sucks them in, and then Wanda creatively uses something against her to fight back. Like, that was great, if you ask me.
I fully agree with you. Cher, did you have anything that was like that for you?
Sorry. My bunny's whispering to me.
Senor Scratchy, he has a lot to say.
He has a lot to say, like, where the hell was he?
He needs to. You're his agent, and you're pissed off that he wasn't in this episode. I get that. My client, I am also an agent. My client Mephisto is steaming. He is so upset.
I love her.
Yeah, enraging with fire and brimstone. Yes.
You love the costume?
Yeah. It's pretty.
Oh no, like that was one thing I liked about it was because it paid homage to her outfit in the comics, but revamped. Because I know a lot of people that I've talked to in my personal life, like a friend of mine who she has a very unpopular opinion about the show entirely, which I get it. She loves the MCU, but she's not a huge fan. But she was the one thing she was always bothered by with Wanda was being like, why is she the only like Avenger that doesn't have a costume yet? And I hope that this helps her a bit of being like, well, she gets the costume now, being like, yeah, we've all been waiting for her to do it, and we kind of got it in the Halloween episode where they paid homage to her old costume. But I love the fact that it was pretty much on point with her old costume, but making it new at the same time.
I too like the costume. I gotta admit, I think it was her hair, or maybe the fact that the crown was a little small. I was like, I'm not liking how this looks. But then she put her hood up, and I was like, oh my god, that looks awesome. Like, as soon as the hood went up, for me, the whole costume was complete, and I liked it. But there was one little detail I noticed about the costume, which actually is what sent me on this whole Wanda's gonna be the villain, and she's not over her grief tirade. If you notice, in this moment when she's taken in the power for the first time, she's finally in her final form, her pure form, some may say. She looks great. She has the crown. She has encapsulated her power, but her hair is still a mess. Like, it's a big mess. And that's when I realized, oh shit, it's a mess because she's still fucked up. Like, she didn't heal. She's still screwed up. And that was a little detail I liked. But my favorite scene, I have two. Both of them having to do with, in my opinion, the best actor in this show, Paul Bettany. He trolled the shit out of us, but I feel like he kind of made up for it, because he wasn't lying when he said him and the cameo had chemistry. He did have chemistry with White Vision. In fact, the little thing I loved is the only person that could defeat Vision is Vision.
What's Vision? Mm-hmm.
Because like it felt like harking back to Avengers: Age of Ultron, where at the end Ultron and Vision have that discussion, and it ends with like Ultron going, "You're naive," and attacking him. But Vision here talking to himself, obviously these are the same. This is the same person. So when he uses nothing but logic to defeat White Vision, it worked so well for me. Like, I love seeing it happen. I love the whole comparison to the boat. Yeah.
I did love the fact that, like, he knew it was him, that he knew being like, well, me, I understand most things with, logic, because at the end of the day, Vision is still a robot. Like, yes, we got to see more of the humanity in him, even though he's not an organic being. He's an artificial being that was created through the scenes we've seen before. But the fact that he was just like, it's still me. This is just a different version of me. But what is the one thing that I know that me would do? Logic. And like doing that, like that. I think it was a theory, right, that he mentioned, being like, have you ever heard of this theory, or have you ever heard of like this? And White Vision's just like, yeah, and being like, well, explains the theory, and being like, do you think that the situation is like this theory? To pretty much being like, yeah, being like at the end of the day, he's a robot, and being like, if nothing's illogical to him, it doesn't make sense, and why should he continue like fighting against himself, when it's just like, well, technically I'm not the Vision they programmed or you to destroy, because I'm a figment of this world. Being like, yes, I'm still you, but I'm a different version than what you were hunting out for.
I think the lines they give, I think they give Vision the best lines, because I really like when he was like, maybe the cuts and rot are the memories and the things that make it whole, but you are the body. And it was just such an interesting comparison. Cal, do you have anything to say about the scene before I jump to the second one?
If you wanted to really confuse Vision, just pull up a Star Trek and say everything I've told you was a lie.
I mean, to be fair, they kind of did the Star Trek situation where it's like, I remember one episode where Kirk talked a computer that was going to kill people into self-destructing. That's kind of what Vision did here, only instead of self-destructing, he was like, no, realize that you are the thing you're supposed to destroy. And then he set him free.
Right, and I think that was, like, honestly the smartest thing to do, because, because they are pretty much one and the same, and being like, and especially since White Vision was, I felt it was also too very poetic, of being like, the fictional non-existent Vision was the humanity in the original Vision, and then you get White Vision, who is the robotic version of him, like, when he it kind of reminded me similar to when he was still Jarvis, in a way, being like, do what he says, do what he's told. And then instead of destroying him, I think it was like a very satisfying conclusion with like setting White Vision pretty much free instead, because I was afraid they were going to be like, oh, here's White Vision, he's gone. So Vision's like gone from the MCU for good, no matter what version it is. But it was pretty smart and I love the fact that you guys did refer to the Star Trek episode, because we got that vibe of being like, yeah, this was like, the Kurt scene.
If I'm to correct you in one way, I think Neil mentioned it earlier. I don't think the Vision in this world is entirely fictional, and even Wanda said it herself. This is a part of the Mind Stone, the emotions, the souls that were, and the memories, and he actually managed to transfer that to White Vision. So now that's passed on to him.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. If you remember, I said in the Hex he's real. Like, essentially what I was saying is this is like the Mind Stone part of her given life, so it's not real Vision. I was explaining how she was able to bring him back without the body.
Right.
How about I give a thorough description? In the Hex, it's the metaphysically real Vision.
Well, this is a Vision created by Wanda, so let's just call him Scarlet Vision.
Well, he is Scarlet after all.
like, yes, like, I understand that, like, because it was really sweet that she, like, explained being like, well, how you were able to kind of exist is you were a part of me that was like, because she did have interaction with the Mind Store before, the Ultron situation stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying because, like, metaphysically, he can't exist outside of the real world. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he wasn't 100% real, but it was just the fact of being like, yeah, like, you pretty much got the mind that existed in Vision, or at least, like, the mind that Wanda created, combining with the body again to make him pretty much complete. That's why I found it clever what they did with them, and especially, like, yeah, one big way to defeat Vision is to use logic of being like,
I just want to see the two Visions play a game of chess with each other now.
But to be fair, though, I don't think that was the best Vision line, and that kind of leads into my favorite scene, which was the ending where they're saying goodbye to each other, and Vision just ever so briefly, like, I understand why this scene might not mean a lot to other people, but one of my personal heroes is J.M. Barrie, the original creator of the story Peter Pan. And one of his big, like, sayings, like, one of the biggest things he ever said was, to die would be an awfully big adventure. And right here, Vision is basically saying that. And I loved it. Like, where he's like, I started off as a voice with no body back when he was Jarvis. Then I became a body, but I didn't have, but I wasn't human. And that's when he's Vision. And now I am a living memory. And he just smiles and holds Wanda's hand and says, oh, I can't wait to see what I'll be next. And I loved it. It filled me with so much adrenaline where I was like, damn, I love this character. Like, I've always said Vision is my second favorite of the MCU Avengers. And I'll be damned, he keeps that. Like, he just keeps keeping that rating.
Alright, family is forever.
I mean, I just really love that he was like, I wonder what White Vision's going to be. Because he knows. He knows in a way he's living on. And I love it. I love it so much. And when he says, we've said goodbye so many times, who's to say we won't say hello again? Well, Wanda says the hello part. And they kiss. Like, honestly, I think that's the next I Love You 3000. I think I'm going to remember the whole we will say hello again. I'm gonna hold on to that shit. I just love this show. Like, I know that the ending wasn't perfect. Again, I think episode 8 was better. Episode 8 was a solid 10 out of 10 for me. But that ending for fake Vision, I just adored it. And they nailed this character.
Pigeon.
I did say Vision.
No, I thought you said pigeon, like the bird, and I was like, wait, there was a pigeon character this whole entire time?
Yes.
I'm going to watch this episode again and be like, where is a pigeon?
When Elizabeth Olsen looked into the eyes of Pigeon and said, I love you.
Right, you see like a Vision version of a pigeon, and what? Wait, you were a pigeon this whole time? What's a twist?
Wouldn't that be something if she, like, polymorphed a pigeon into Vision?
WandaPigeon, WandaPigeon.
That's giving me, like, flashbacks.
Mr. Scratchy just turned a pigeon to a fly and had Mr. Senior Scratchy eat it.
You know, the even funnier is if they did that and then being like, in season 2, it's good. It's pretty much going to be like cop shows of the past where Wanda's in like partnership with the, Vision Pigeon. WandaPigeon, WandaPigeon.
I'm just saying, though, real fast before we go forward, Sparky did not come back to life as a robot dog. 0 out of 10 shows shit.
Well, At least
Well,
at least I'm not the only one who can get words wrong. First it was Haley, and now we got Pigeon. We're gonna write this down in history.
I said Vision, as in fake Vision.
Well, it sounded like you said pigeon. It sounded like you said pigeon. Just don't let Agatha turn it back into a fly and have Senior eat it.
I'm sorry, but I thought you said pigeon. I thought you did.
When you said it, I had flashbacks. There's this video game out there from Japan. It's hilarious, where it's a dating sim, like the type that you would get with, like, you know, animu boys and animu girls, but instead it's all pigeons. And it's real.
I'm not surprised with Japan.
That exists. That exists.
I've seen it.
I have no idea what the heck you guys are talking about. I don't do video games.
But honestly, like, the fact that White Vision left, like, other people were complaining, like, why didn't he stay and help Wanda? I honestly think that his programming was still telling him to kill Wanda, so he probably just retreated. That way he could, like, get himself in check. I kind of feel like the second season of WandaVision should just be Vision. Hello?
Like, I don't think, like... Hello? Hello?
Hi.
I hear you now.
Hi.
I hear you now.
Hold on.
Hello.
Go ahead, Mel. We can hear you now.
Mel.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, this is what happens when you share Wi-Fi with an apartment. But
Good.
no, and I don't think I would have been satisfied if White Vision came to help out, because, like, with everything that just happened.
What happened?
From Alternative
Agatha.
Vision and Wanda's world would have been. Oh, you guys can't hear me?
Yeah,
it was
and then out. You're okay, Mel. Just give it a minute, and then we'll come back to you. We'll give the connection. We'll give the connection a minute to fix itself. Cher, you haven't talked a whole ton. Do you have anything you want to say about this episode, or forever hold your peace? Because we have a little bit of behind the scenes here. We have talked about the cast for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and unfortunately, you're not on that cast. So this is kind of your last episode for a little bit. So
I'll still be here, sort of. I just have school and stuff, and don't worry, Senior Scratchy will take care of me.
Do you have anything to say about this final episode, or maybe all the episodes up till now? Like, how was your experience with the show, and how do you feel about Vision, and probably more so Wanda as a character, or any of the characters in the show, like Monica, Agatha? How do you feel, Cher?
Oh dear, how do I feel? You feel dissatisfied because you weren't in the episode. I realize that. I know. It's okay. It's okay. You'll be back, honey. You'll be back. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's amazing how we started off with sitcoms and then we just ended up here. And I know I kept making a lot of Frozen references. I know. How dare you make those Frozen references? You are a disgrace. How dare you? I just can't help it, though. I just see a lot of similarities with Elsa and Wanda. I just can't help it. Sometimes, in order for me to understand how things work, I have to use Disney. I just have to use Disney so I can better understand what the hell's going on. I'm sorry.
I'm just imagining you becoming something like a cold case detective, and you're just using everything you've learned from Disney movies to solve these tough cases.
Okay,
I do have a distinct memory. I think one of our my favorite memories of this series is going to be when me and Callum are giving our deep theories about Mephisto and how the commercials interact with the world, and then Cher talks for like 20 minutes about Yo Gabba Gabba. I love that.
I could talk forever about shows like that. Oh my gosh, yeah, like sitcoms, and then like the Halloween episode, and that time back in the 80s where I was a little cuckoo. Strawberry shortcake. Oh my god, that was funny. Yo Gabba Gabba, and then freaking, I don't even know what I said the last time. Oh yeah, Hocus Pocus.
And don't forget, Quicksilver's last name was Boner. And that's fun.
Good night, everybody.
Mel's laughing too. Not burps.
Yeah, but like I wish there was more stuff with Monica in this episode. I feel like they didn't really do that much. I mean, yeah, she was able to escape from like Quicksilver. She was able to dodge, absorb bullets or whatever. I still don't understand how that works.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that disappointed me. Like, some of the characters didn't get enough of a payoff despite having lots of development put into. And no, Neil, I'm not talking about Jimmy. I'm also talking about Monica, as well as Quicksilver, as well as Darcy.
I will say I love this scene with Jimmy Woo when, like, fuckface was just like, you're bluffing, and he's just like, am I? And then, like, they leave him alone, and he uncuffs himself, and he's like, hey, yo, can you guys come down here in like an hour and be like, you were bluffing, you son of a bitch.
Well, what I loved about Jimmy, and I hope this continues going forward, the reason he was able to get the handcuffs off, he even says at the end, flourish. That's another fucking magic trick. He just learned magic. Like fake illusion magic. And I love that that is helping him as an agent. But Cher, any final thoughts?
I like how also the recall from Age of Ultron where Wanda, like that little editing thing with Wanda, how she used the little mind trick, whatever. I like that call back to Age of Ultron.
With Agatha?
Yeah, with Agatha. Oh my gosh! Oh, that scene with the dead witches coming back to life. I was like, oh, that's so creepy. It's terror time again, y'all. It's terror time again.
I almost forgot.
Sorry.
Did you guys catch the Wizard of Oz reference?
Yes, yes. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch is dead. The witch is dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. You know how the witch of the east, like with Dorothy's tower or Dorothy's house lands on the wicked witch of the east, and like, you only see her legs and they kind of like scribble whatever, wither away whatever. That's a Wizard of Oz reference.
Yeah.
I still have my Dorothy costume. I didn't want to wear it today because I didn't feel like wearing anything today, so. Besides, I have Senior Scratchy right here. He keeps me company.
I find it interesting that Wanda, for some reason, describes herself as not a witch. But you know what? I say there are plenty of ways to tell if she is a witch. Namely, if she weighs the same as a duck, then she's made of wood. If she's made of wood, she can burn, therefore she's a witch.
What reference is this?
Monty Python.
Yeah, Monty Python.
I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, yeah,
she weighs the same as a pigeon.
Also
she is a witch.
Speaking of Wizard of Oz, stuff. Speaking of Wizard of Oz, she's able. Wanda's able to defy gravity.
What I liked though is both the movies from the movie theater got referenced. We saw a reference to Oz the Great and Powerful with the shoes. And then here Incredibles got referenced when they did the pose.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm not dumb, right? That was totally a reference to The Incredibles, right?
It looked like The Incredibles. It looked like the way that they were posing, and it looked like The Incredibles.
Two parents, one of them with two parents, one character that can turn invisible, one character that has super speed, and one that can create force fields. Just saying. All doing a pose.
Plus the kids come in to help the parents. Oh my gosh, Caleb, are you drinking out of an Incredibles cup?
Yep, had that for a long time. Yeah.
How did I just realize that?
I find it weird that you just happen to have liquid in that. What liquid is that?
You don't want to know.
And I've drunk it all. Yeah, it's empty now. Just drinking like the droplets of it.
You're just holding a very dusty cup for this joke.
Well, not dusty. It's just like full of droplets of milk.
Mel, do you have any final thoughts for this episode?
So like I said before, I thought most of the beginning was pretty strong. Yes, I think one of my favorite moments was, like what you said when Agatha pretty much like confronted her and being like, it's fine that you're upset, but you are doing a lot of bad with this, being like you're being selfish. And I did like some references like the Wicked Witch of the West thing, except for Ivy being like, ding dong, the witches, oh fuck, a cop out. Being like, and there was like little snippets that I loved. And of course, like in the beginning, I think one of the biggest weaknesses was the fact that like you didn't utilize like Monica Rambeau, especially like she played so huge in the show of being like the one that actually tried to like reason with Wanda, but it kept being like shifted. And I felt like a lot of like characters who were a big deal before got shafted. I think that's another problem I had with it, was being like characters had a bigger role to play got kind of shafted in the end, being like, yes, when they were utilized it was okay. Like I think my favorites were Darcy and Jimmy Woo because of more of the comedy effect. Like I liked how Darcy, appeared last minute to run over Fuckface and being like, enjoy prison, but then nothing was touched on her again. And that was like the only time, especially since like she was stuck in the hex too. And I just hope that they utilize like the secondary characters more. Like I was hoping that Monica Rambeau would have, helped, since Vision couldn't really help Wanda out with Agatha. I wanted like to, and I guess it's like the girl power side of me. I wanted to see even just a little bit of Monica after escaping from Ralph. Fucking Ralph.
Boner.
Right? To tag team a little bit, even if it wasn't for a lot, but it's just like here you were building up like Monica, and I get like that she should have not been completely involved because it was definitely like a gateway to like being like she's either going to get her own movie or her own show, but it's just like a little bit of her being more involved would have been it's just the little things that would have touched this up and have it be a better episode. But I think really the weakest part was the endings, or at least not like the true ending, because I was fine with like Wanda, like what you said, Neil. This is an opening to her being like potentially a bad guy for at least the short term, because depending on which version you see her, she's not always necessarily the good guy per se. And I feel like the MCU is being smart with that, with her being like, let her be a villain for a little bit. She has been a villain in other sources of, Marvel media before. And that's not the problem. The problem was they took that, it started to sink, it started to be rushed. And and I personally think this, and especially it's disappointing of it being the final episode, like they could have done it with other episodes before this, but for a season finale, it's the weakest out of all the episodes. And being like, yes, there were some parts I loved about it, but everything was rushed. Characters that were a big deal before got casted to the side. And I wasn't expecting a happy ending either, but it just felt really rushed, and they could have at least like opened up with stuff. And I am not mad at the actor for shit. I'm spacing his name again. Paul Bettany. Thank you, Paul Bettany. You know, making the joke. It was just being like, but you let it carry on for so long that people actually believed you and were expecting something like I would like this had an opportunity to introduce something, and I felt like it was so rushed and so executed like pretty poorly. Like it's not the worst like finale I've ever seen in my life. Like look at Dexter's finale, that was shit. You know, Game of Thrones, they were shit. It wasn't on that level of bad, but because like I haven't actually finished Supernatural. I only just started watching it like for the first time, like I think a year or so ago. But I have different opinions of that, but we'll probably talk about some other time because it's not WandaVision. But anyway, but I feel like because they took their time with the rest of the show, it won't go down, in my opinion, as the worst finale ever, because there's shows that ended way worse, but it's not the strongest for this show at all. And I personally can't, you know, get over that of being like they rushed it, even though they had good moments. Like there are moments I love about it, and there's some of your guys' opinions that I do agree with, but at the end of the day, it's just like they just took everything that they took their time on and gave us like like already cooled off pancakes, middle of the road, being like they're not fresh and hot, but they're not like in the fridge for overnight cold. But it's just like I really want to eat these pancakes. It was very middle of the road for a show that was so amazing, is what I'm saying.
And what might help you accentuate, like, sort of put a cherry on top of that opinion, Mel, is if you give us your rating.
Oh, can someone else go first?
Right.
I mean, okay, go into final thoughts and then in on your rating, Callum.
Yeah, there's so many food comparisons. Like, first, Captain Marvel's compared to breadsticks, and now we're comparing WandaVision to lukewarm pancakes.
I mean, to be fair, given the choice, I'll have lukewarm pancakes any day.
Fair enough.
You still get syrup on that shit, it's still pancakes.
Especially if it's Canadian.
This is the kind of lukewarm pancakes where, like I said, it's not fresh off the stovetop. It was after the pancakes
It was in the fridge.
It's been sitting out for long enough where it's just like the syrup is not like it's mostly absorbed, and the butter's like, and the butter's not perfect at all. Like it's not dripping. It's just kind of like stale at this point, and it's just like it doesn't taste bad, but it's not good either. And I don't know if I want to finish these pancakes.
So what you're saying, Mel, is WandaVision's last episode is pancakes from McDonald's.
Wow. I kind of
You know I'm right. You all know I'm right.
I mean, I like freaking IHOP pancakes and Denny's pancakes and International House of what's Original Pancake House? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
No, what I'm saying is that it's a little bit worse than the McDonald's pancakes. I'm saying like these are like McDonald's pancakes if you bring them home to your kid and you just have it sit in the microwave without like it keeping heat for a few hours.
I hope one day to review all the MCU projects with food. We'll get there one day.
Wait, we did Captain Marvel, but we haven't done. We done the first Captain America movie. What food is that? The American popsicle stick?
It's like original Pepsi.
Yeah, it's like original Pepsi.
Oh, would that make
it's good if you like Pepsi, but if you don't like Pepsi and you like Coke, then you're not going to enjoy Captain America.
What happens if you don't like or Coke?
Well,
then you'll enjoy it either way. It's not really a loss if you like both Coke and Pepsi.
yeah, you're sort of in the
I
middle.
don't
Like
either of them. I don't like Coke or Pepsi. I like
you're
Sprite.
maybe that's why you couldn't remember any of it.
Oh yeah.
Does that make Captain America the Winter Soldier like Diet Pepsi and all the Avengers movie?
No one said diet.
Right.
No one said diet.
Don't try it.
Oh yeah, because the only thing I remember from Captain America, the first Avenger, was the Wicked poster.
Callum, go into your final thoughts and then give a rating.
Every Avengers movie is a buffet. No. So looking back on the show, it's times like these where I look at the show as a whole as well, because sometimes with stories such as these, where it's a story that's told in the long term, as it were, the build-up was so great, but the finale left a lot wanting. I mean, there's a difference between leaving things up for interpretation and leaving people in the dark. But my, what a build-up that was. I mean, that was some of the most amazing build-up I've seen in any kind of televised format stories I've ever seen. I mean, it was a brilliantly built-up mystery. It grabbed you immediately, like, okay, what is going on? I mean, it's not a typical Marvel show, like, okay, action villain's gonna invade, gotta stop him, where are they gonna go next? No, it's literally like, no, what is happening? No, literally, what is happening? Like, that grabbed me, and it was really good at giving you just little snippets, little bites and snippets before giving you more answers, followed by more questions, which were answered in the next one. So that format was left me kind of in the dark by the time it got to the last episode. But I suppose I should have been a Marvel comic nerd in order to get some of it. But even then, I think some of the comic fans were still left wanting more. See, people like me, I'm in it for the story, the narrative. So yeah, from a purely narrative standpoint, it left a lot wanting, and a tad bit of dependency on sequel baiting, which is a word I really don't like to use, but I don't think WandaVision's the worst example. It does wrap up some loose ends in a sense, and some that pay off well. It just could have been better, but the rest of the show was an amazing build-up. But as for this finale, I think it was fine. I don't hate it, but it wasn't great either.
Give it a number.
In the Stardust reaction, I give it like a 3 stars. So I think I'm gonna give this finale either 6.8 or 7 out of 10. 6.8. 6.8.
Wait, 6.8? Wait, what?
Callum, you're only allowed to give a 6.5. You have to round up if you want to go to 7.
Okay, 6.5.
So you're rounding down? You can either round up. Okay, fine. Well, you can give it a 6.5.
Maybe, or maybe a 7.
6.5. He did say 6.5.
I mean, it's up to him. But well, the thing in my head where I was like, what's going on with this rating is the fact that like he gave it a 6.8. So if you rounded that, it would actually go up.
And 7.
But then I was like,
okay.
Senior Scratchy says
like,
6.
if you want to give it a 6.5, that's fine too. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now I can't tell anymore. 6.5.
You know, let's just say it's 7. I don't care.
7.
Well,
Yeah, 7.
if you know rounding rules, if you know rounding rules, if it's 4 and below, you just keep it like the 0. If it's 5 and above, you round it up.
Well, yeah.
I can do that.
Okay, so 7. Let's just say 7. It was right. It was 0.2 away from 7 anyways. It might as well be 7. But give it like a low 7, like it's barely 7.
Very barely, yes. There were still some awesome moments, but it still left me yearning for more. Yeah.
I guess I'll go into my final thoughts now. I have not yet given. When I came into WandaVision, I had one thing I wanted, and that was I wanted to see a show about Vision. That's really it. I was okay with seeing some cool stuff with Wanda, but Vision was my priority. And I got some of the best dialogue in any Marvel anything from Vision, and a great story, and just these amazing visuals and stuff like that. So, I gotta go for a second. Someone else talk.
Okay.
Fair, give your ratings and stuff.
Okay. So, hello. Yes, you say 6. Okay. So I had no idea what I was going to get myself into when watching WandaVision. I was excited for mainly all the references for like TV shows, because my dad and my mom, they both grew up in the 60s, so they knew a lot of those. Oldies. I don't know if that's the right word to use for that, because I kind of feel bad for saying oldies, but they knew about like Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, Bewitched, Brady Bunch, Family Ties. I grew up more with like late 80s and 90s and obviously 2000s, because I'm a 2000s kid. So like Malcolm in the Middle and
something you just reminded me of, Cher, as you were saying that. Just to springboard off what you said.
I didn't know you were back.
Don't worry. Kevin Smith, great director. Loved this episode. Left him crying his eyes out. Kevin Smith once said that one of the things he really liked about episode 8 is that it kind of is an anagram for the method the show has created. And what he means is that what he said was Wanda just wants somebody to like grow old with and watch TV with, like to just hang out and watch her sitcoms with. And Marvel has unintentionally created a situation where parents are watching this and seeing the references to the old shows and like getting a big smile on their face while kids are watching this and loving the superhero aspect. Marvel unintentionally kind of created a family show that everybody can watch together.
In a way, they kind of create a little bit of a happy medium. Like the references to like the old shows like Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, Bewitched, and then like the kids, they like the superheroes and the action stuff. So you kind of just like bringing them all together, and you get the best of both worlds.
Right, and I think like the important part too is that I've noticed with like people who've watched it old and new is that it brings a happy medium to where the younger generation actually wants to watch these shows like I Heart Lucy, the Dick Van Dyke Show, and Bewitched, while the older generation, because I've met people who are of the older generation who don't get the superhero thing, but I feel like since the show came out, now the older generation is just like, okay, I get why you guys like this shit. So it's also a happy medium of being like actually not only unintentionally creating a family show, but also I feel like it's like a good medium for like the new generation to want to like experience what the older generation has seen, especially for those like Cher, which you mostly grew up like with the newer content that was beyond your parents' prime, and vice versa with them of being like, okay, I can get behind this. So I thought it was like a good thing for that too.
Yeah,
uniting generations.
Yeah, so back to my thoughts. Like I was saying, I had no idea what I was going to expect. I love the references. I love how, spending time with my parents, because they grew up in the 60s, so they were telling me all these references that was going on in the episode, how they were kind of poking fun at it. The mystery aspect. My favorite parts of me comparing Wanda to freaking Elsa from Frozen, despite Melissa hating me on that.
Because you're not Missy. Kidding.
Freaking yo gabba gabba.
I honestly think WandaVision is more like Tangled. Like Agatha kind of takes the role of Mother Gothel,
Mother
and she's trapped in a place that she doesn't fully understand while her powers are siphoned off by this evil witch.
Oh yeah, the theme songs. I love the theme songs, especially Agatha's theme song.
God damn it! No, don't. I've been trying to get that out of my head, and Eli keeps baiting me. Don't. I want to, but it's been the bane of my existence at the same time. So don't start.
You know what's interesting about the show is the fact that it has happened weekly. Like, if this show dropped all at once, I think people would have liked the ending a little better. But I think that, like, we wouldn't have discussed everything in detail the way we did. Like, I remember some of the funniest jokes, and at this point, they are memories. Like, looking back at a baby Vision when he popped up for a second and the laughs that gave me. And all the way back to when Vision, like, ate the gum and he ended up, like, getting drunk. Like, I honestly feel like I could go back and watch this show 1,000,000 times. It's so good. But Cher, do you have a number to go with your opinions?
Touch me, it's so easy. I love with the memory. My days in the sun. Touch me. You understand what happiness is.
Yes.
It's the better version.
Sorry.
Rating per episode. I love the song too, but rating.
Ratings.
Okay.
Pressure.
Everyone okay?
Everything's
collapsing. Give the rating before the show gets cancelled.
Okay, I give it a 7. Senior Scratchy said he gives it a 6.5.
Wanda's breaking the barrier. We gotta go.
Wait,
We're kidding.
He has to give her score yet?
Mel, do you want to give your score now? Do you have one?
I'll wait till you have a score, because I kind of want to see the last one for once.
You were the last one. You were last one once. I remember it.
I still want to be.
Okay, you can be last. But yeah, I ended up falling in love with Wanda all over again. Like, I love the costume. I loved all of the comic book references. This is what I live for in the
Open the car.
And honestly, it gave me so much hope for the Hawkeye show. There were one or two things that really disappointed me though. Like, for example, if Quicksilver is just straight up not Quicksilver, that's a wasted opportunity, and I kind of hate it.
Yeah,
But
it also kind of uncannoned the Fox MCU pretty much.
I mean, it'll be sad if we never see another Quicksilver scene like Time in a Bottle or Sweet Dreams Are Made of These.
Who am I to disagree?
Yes, I love that song. I won't sing it.
Everybody's looking for something.
Anyways,
Tell them if we do this, we'll be doing it the whole episode.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I know that there were talks of disappointment, talks of this episode not being that great. I really liked this episode. I agree that it wasn't perfect, but I can't give it too low of a rating. Like, for me, 5 is general. Like, 5 is just like, it was okay, it's fine. Basic movie. 6 is just a little above average, and 7 was like, okay, this is good. I thought this was really good. So, since I thought it was really good, I'm going to give it an 8. I can't deny that the last episode was better. I truly think the last episode was some of the best that the MCU had to offer. And I honestly think I'm going to watch the last episode again several times. And I don't know if I would watch this episode just as many times. But I liked it, and I thought it was a good ending. So I give it an 8.
Oh boy, all hell's about to break loose again.
It is. It is. So, just to wrap it up, so this show overall, and especially since we were talking about, like, you know, the generations and stuff, I think another beautiful part about the show, because it was opened up weekly, it's like I said before, it gives people that sense of nostalgia. It also gives the younger generation too, like, having to build up the patience of being like, yeah, this is what we had to deal with back in the day, of being like, episodes did not come out all at once. You had to wait for a week or so for a new episode of any show to come out at the time. And I feel like that was like an awesome nostalgia quality of being like, because that was like, you know, the one thing I looked forward to throughout the week was the newest episode of WandaVision. I love this show. And that's why, like, with me, with this episode, like I said, it's not the worst finale I've ever seen. There are shows that were way more abysmal with their finales than this one, but I still feel like, even though there's parts I agree with you guys, like I had favorite moments, but for a show that took its time and you got to develop the characters, you got to like wonder and mystery, it was very rushed, and a show like that does deserve a better ending. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be the most perfect of endings, but it did the thing that we all talked about, was an ending of a show can ruin the rest of the show. Like, I would still watch the rest of the episodes because I loved them from shows that because my parents had me grow up on the old school and the new school shit, you know, and it hit some nostalgic points. But this episode, it was very middle of the road in comparison to like the rest of them. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this a 4.5 out of 10.
Dun, dun,
It
dun,
could have
dun.
done
Terry. Terry, I just want to say I've changed my mind. Just hearing everyone's scores, I think I'm gonna change my score from a 7 to a 6. I think.
Okay.
All right.
Dang. Oh wow.
It's just because the rest of the show is great and it had a lot of great qualities. I can't, because it's like what Neil said, like 5 is kind of like middle of the road, like you don't hate it, you don't love it. And for me, like a 4.5 is like as close to a 5 as I can get, only because there were huge discrepancies and being like, and yes, and I'm not like personally, like I'm not going to go and, you know, like get my pitchforks and my, you know, torch for it.
Burn
But
down. Burn her hellfire.
They're
and
witches.
especially,
They're witches. That could be offensive.
True, but you know what I mean? It's like, because I don't believe in like the toxic traits of a lot of fandoms, so it's not like I'm gonna go after like Batley and be like, you lied to us, but it also too it interfered with the shit, because I feel like people would have liked this episode more if people just stepped up and being like, hey, this isn't happening a lot sooner, because we all believed it. And which kind of does make us kind of like, you know, fools in our own right. But, and it's like I said, I'm not going to hate him. And I don't believe in like that toxic like fandom side where it's just like, oh, well, I hate you now because you made a joke. Because I feel people get too offended with their shit. Whereas at the end of the day, it's being like, this is fiction, but it still could have been better. So mine's going to be a 4.5 out of 10.
Well, that is actually a 25.5 out of 40, and the average is about 64%.
I wonder, because I remember before this, our lowest episode was episode 3. So I wonder. Wait, what was that?
Oh, episode 3 was 20 point. Well, if Mel, that's because Mel wasn't there, so.
Well, Mel did rate it, so I guess we could add that in later.
Yeah. I can do.
But I am curious if this is now the lowest episode.
Oh, that sucks.
I don't know, though, because I really liked this episode. I thought it was better than episode 3, personally.
And I strongly disagree. I thought episode 3 was better than this one. It's just because like
fine.
episode 3, it was like really early on. I think like why is because this is the finale, and so I feel like with finale shows, like kind of like similar to like the beginning episode, like episode 1 is just like like each first episode of any show is like it gets you interested and invested. If it doesn't do its job, then it's not a good show. So, and same with the finale of being like, it works in the opposite way of being like, well, episode 1 is the startup to being like, are you going to watch the show or not? I feel like with finales, it's just like, was the watch a payoff? That's why a lot of people got like upset with other shows, and that's why I do say being like, this isn't the worst I've seen. Like, look at Game of Thrones. We'll use that as the huge example of being like so much investment from episode 1 for it to falter like that had a lot of people feel robbed and defeated because they got hooked and baited to episode 1. Even people who I've known who refused to watch the show, when they finally watched episode 1, it got them reeled, but like I said, it's not the worst finale I've ever seen. There's way worse out there, but it was so middle of the road and so rushed that even if they weren't going to give us everything, they should have at least gave us enough to look forward to in the future. And not have us sit here scratching your heads. It's kind of like what Callum said, being like, there's a difference between, what was it that you,
There's a difference between leaving it up for the audience's interpretation and leaving us in the dark.
Yes, exactly. And because the MCU has done that of being like left up for interpretation until we saw the next one. But of course, like they were facing a different problem at the time of like Marvel fatigue for some. But with this one, it was just like it probably left a lot of people in the dark, where it's just like there's not really enough interpretation for some people to be completely satisfied. And especially there was info out there that they should have just corrected, because I don't think I would have hated it as much if they just if they just had been like, hey, there's actually not, like, Evan Peters is pretty much like the closest to a special guest you can get. And I don't think I would have been as mad, but I'm also the same person that I believe if the ship goes down, everyone goes down with the ship. So that's why I can't also too blame, like, Bentley for making the joke, because just like, well, it was up to the director to stop it or somebody else to clarify. Like, if something ends, you have to blame everybody. But I think actors are just like the lowest form of that, and that's why I don't believe in blaming actors for why something was ruined, because just like they're just doing their job. They're performers.
Thinking about television shows, I'm beginning to think the number of ways that WandaVision could have made its finale better. I'm beginning to think of television shows where they had exceptionally fantastic finales. I've compared WandaVision with Gravity Falls, and Gravity Falls is a show which had a really great 3-part finale where every single facet of the show was building up to it, and a lot of the characters had their payoff at that moment, and it was a really climactic finale, and they even subverted some expectations, even with the theories that was been going on, and they did it a great way to build up the characters and give some great dramatic closure. And thinking of an example about leaving things to some interpretation, the anime Cowboy Bebop has a really great finale. Mel loves Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, the main character Spike Spiegel has a troubled past, and you get invested in him by episode 5. You think, oh, what's going on? What's his past all about? But they give you bits and pieces, and even in the finale, they don't give you every detail about his past, but they give you just enough for you to know that he was a former criminal, he regrets it, and now he has to pay the consequences. So,
exactly. Like, I don't expect like shows to have like a happy conclusion or a completed conclusion, but it's the execution that makes you reeled in. Like, since you used Gravity Falls and Cowboy Bebop as a reference, like with Gravity Falls, almost everything falls under a conclusion, but it's not necessarily a happy ending because they have to go back to where they were originally from, and that was a really sad moment for everybody of being like, well, we love this place now, and they didn't want to leave, but they knew they had to. And then with Cowboy Bebop, it's like what you said, of being like they didn't give a whole lot away, and it was still up for interpretation, but they at least gave you something. And I felt like with WandaVision, they had a perfect opportunity. They just rushed it and didn't execute it. And also too, like, yes, some outside sources did not help it either, because it gave fans like some type of expectations, like we were talking about in the last episode of like how, like I said, I didn't ask for a whole lot with it. I just had a few things with it that I would have liked to see. And of course, like, part of that is on, the fans too, of being like, this is why expectations are sometimes not necessarily a good thing, because you build it up so much, and then if it doesn't succeed, that's how more disappointed you get. But it just felt like with all the effort that they put in the show before, they could have given us just a little bit more to at least, like Callum said, there's a difference between like, leaving it up for interpretation and then leaving us in the complete dark.
Well, real fast, because I know you got to go to sleep, Cal, because you're in Scotland and it's late for you. So this can sort of be the final thing. I think it's possible that this is going to have an Avengers Age of Ultron effect, where like when you first see it, it's like, oh, well, it was okay, but it wasn't great. And then later, as the MCU develops and we realize just how important this last episode was, I think it will go miles. Like, I think time is going to age this fucker beautifully. But with
we'll
that,
wait and see about that.
Yeah, because
only time will tell.
Yep, only time will tell.
Who can say if WandaVision's good, if the show would only...
Now, if only that time was in a bottle and Quicksilver was running.
Oh, goodness. So, I guess this will, because I know that Cher and I will not be in the next like show that they're talking about, and we'll come back. But I feel like if you guys have all the scores, I think we should, as a final send-off, we should go over each episode that we all rated again, or at least the scores that we have, and then add them together separately and then as a united.
Now, see, I'm dumb and didn't get the scores. So my whole plan was like, yep, I'm dumb and I forgot to get the scores. So my whole plan was like, when we start Winter Soldier, I'll give the scores.
Oh my goodness me. So nobody kept track of anything? This is
Look, there are days when I'm just the dumb guy. There are days when I'm really smart. There are days when I know the most of anyone in the room. And there are days where I'm just the idiot. This is one of those days.
That just makes me human. Okay, well then I guess it's a compromise. Add up the score for this episode, and then when you two, since Cher and I won't be in this series at all, which is sad to me because I actually this is the one thing I look forward to as well at each week. So hoping I get to talk to the rest of you outside of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I think then as a compromise, add up the scores for this one and keep the score, and then whoever wants to go back to each episode to get the rest of the scores, I guess you guys can say the final scores in your guys' episode.
I'm sure you guys will be back for Black Widow.
Oh heck yeah, Black Widow! Yes. Yay! Or anything Disney related, any pure Disney. Disney movies, Disney Channel, which you guys still have to do zombies and freaking other things that we were gonna do, like the Wizards of Waverly Place movie. Like, come on.
That's right, Sal. We got to review something next week. We'll figure that out.
I've still got some pre-recordings of several bits of content we did, so I should.
We'll talk about that off screen.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, but let's add up the final score to this episode.
Well, the final score, I believe, Cher said it was a 25, right?
25.5 out of 40. 64%. If, average and stuff like that.
I do think overall, like if we look at our ratings, because I do remember some of them, overall, I believe our combined rating was mostly positive, but I think this episode probably dragged it down from being like an A to like a B plus.
Right, because I know I caught up with you guys when I finally joined in episode 4 and giving like 1, 2, and 3. But it was, if I remember right, it was 3 that was the lowest score, but I feel like this one might be the lowest now, and 3 might be the second lowest.
I still like this one, but hey, that's how the pins fall sometimes. And plus, like, if anything, if this episode is bad, it's just because they blew their load on 8. They did so much amazing shit in 8 that when it came to like 9, it was already at its peak.
Right. That's why I was saying like expectations like can lead to more disappointment, and I feel like especially with episode 8 and then the other episodes prior, because I think if I remember right, our scores kept getting higher and higher, and then there was a lot at stake with the finale with that, and I feel like that's why in majority of life, or this should be a life lesson, being like never set your expectations up too high, because
I learned that lesson from Frozen 2.
Yep. Because I knew you were gonna say that too, but yeah, kids, never have your expectations up too high, or else you're gonna lead to greater disappointment later. Always just find a middle ground.
I don't know what you're talking about at all, Mel. There's not a single fan base ever that's ever done anything like that.
There is? Really? I didn't know that.
Not a single one.
Not a single one? Oh my goodness. I feel good. You're right. There's no fan base ever in history of fandoms that
especially not about one that takes place in the stars and there's a war.
That would be cool.
Long time ago.
Which, by the way, that would be cool to do like later, because I actually now officially have watched all of the Star Wars movies. I just watched Solo. Yeah.
Looking back on Disney+Pals, we've reviewed one Star Wars project and do this fucking Lego holiday special.
Oh, hi. How are you doing, Dad? Dad's here. Oh, no. Bye.
With that, ladies and gents, I think it's time for us to end the episode.
Senior Scratchy says goodbye.
For now.
All of the stuff in the description is there. Thank you for watching. Yep. By the way, since we did get a comment about it, I'm just going to reveal everything. Cher, that necklace is going to turn you into the Sapphire Sorceress. You're evil now, and we're going to take over the world.
Yay!
No, that should have went to me. I would have utilized it.
Oh, I got plans for you now. Don't you worry.
Oh. Yes.
I'm not.
See you in Doctor Strange 2, bitches. I'm the villain.
Yeah, you were just going to use that to take over Wanda's acid farm.
Why do we live in a world where every Marvel character has to sell drugs? Why is that your world?
Because it's reality. Drugs are everywhere.
I guess you could say that reality is stoned. Good night, everybody.
Night. We'll see you guys again. This isn't goodbye. This is see you later.
Good luck
Tell
with
them.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Family is forever.
Good luck with Falcon
Yes,
and
good
Winter
luck.
Soldier. Good luck.
Cher, you and I can talk about it on the side while the boys have their bro special.
Gross.
Throw
Bro.
it down.
Saturdays
Throw it
are
up.
for the boys. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
In the episode, you son of a bitch.
Okay, I'm ending it.